This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for June 11th, 3 p.m. Well, the tropics are rather quiet right now, which is fairly typical for the month of June. However, there have been some pretty intense systems in the month of June. In fact, in 1906, we had a storm develop near Andros Island in the Bahamas and moved towards South Florida on June 16th as a Category 2 hurricane. And of course, 1966, a lot of you may remember Hurricane Alma, that hit West Cuba as a Category 1 and then hit the Florida Panhandle as a Category 2 hurricane with 110 mile per hour winds. Many were killed in Honduras, in the area where the system developed. And then the last time we had a named storm during this week, between the June 8th and June 14th, we had a system, Tropical Storm Marlene, developed in June. And on June 11th, the system hit Pensacola from the south with 60 mile per hour winds. But right now, everything is quiet out there. Now, the reason our current feature is Mobile, Alabama, right here, is because we have some disturbed weather moving through the area, and there's some watches and warnings in the Florida Panhandle and over towards Mobile, Alabama. There's some severe weather moving in from the south. There was, in fact, a tornado warning earlier this morning. But let's take a look at the current Mobile, Alabama situation. We have calm winds reported as of the last hour, 74 degrees with heavy rain in the area, pressure 2998. And of course, when you click on the Mobile, Alabama link, you get this page with all these links on the side. You can get the local radar loop, and let's go ahead and pull that up and show you what's happening. There's a lot of heavy rain moving into Mobile, Alabama this morning, and people just need to be aware of what's going on locally. There's going to be a lot of rain. They've had about a foot of rain so far, and there's more coming as a trough is sitting over the area. So be aware for that. But let's get on to what's happening in the tropics. First of all, let's take a look at the loop of the Atlantic Basin. And here we go. We can see basically troughiness out in the Atlantic right now. We have the area disturbed weather moving into the northern Gulf Coast, and then the Caribbean is pretty dry at this time with wind shear racing from west to east across the Caribbean and the southwest Atlantic rather, and that does not allow any tropical development. That's why June, it's very unusual to get a system in June. You usually like to look at the western Caribbean and the southern Gulf of Mexico, maybe the Bahamas for development, but that's just not happening right now. There's too much wind shear out there. So let's get to the specifics on what's happening. Here is our current wind shear analysis from the University of Wisconsin, and you can see that we have 20 to 30 knots of wind shear rolling all the way through the Caribbean Sea here and out into the Atlantic. Big deep trough out in the Atlantic right now, causing very high winds out of the west across the Caribbean, which chops the top of the cloud tops of developing thunderstorms. It just does not allow a system to gather any convection because the wind shear is just too strong down there. And there's some dry air down there as well. So we're not expecting any development in the near future. However, in about a week from now, things could change a little bit. But right now, as you can see, the wind shear is just way too high out there. Here's the wind shear tendency map. And again, anywhere you see oranges, yellows, colors like that, that's increasing wind shear. So again, the Caribbean increasing wind shear. And of course, off the southeastern United States, we have increasing wind shear. So basically, in a nutshell, currently, or at least for the next several days, there's no chance for any development out in the Atlantic Basin. Now, this is what's interesting. This is the GFS map for going out about 7 days from now. And you'll notice on this map that there's an area that could develop in the Western Caribbean in about 7 or 8 days from now. And that's this area down here. You can see there's an indication that we could have a little area of low pressure develop off of Belize and Honduras. And the general motion, this develops down in South America and then drifts off to the northwest and then begins to develop here south of Cuba. So it'll be interesting to see if this pans out. But as of right now, even the European model is really not showing much down in the Caribbean even in a week from now, and that's one of the more reliable models. But then again, the European model is good for systems once they've already developed. The Euro isn't very good at predicting development. So we're going to keep an eye on this, see if the GFS continues to show development down in the Western Caribbean. Now here is the anomaly averages for the entire Atlantic Basin. I know this is kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. And let me get focused on this map right here, because these are the sea surface temperature anomalies over the last several weeks in the Atlantic Basin. And you can see that the blue areas would indicate right around average temperatures. The yellow areas would indicate slightly above average temperatures. So we're going out into the Atlantic, and here is the entire Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea is right about a half a degree above normal for sea surface temperatures. And then the blue areas and out near Africa, it's right around average to maybe slightly below average temperatures out near Africa. So that's another reason why we're not expecting that many storms this year out in the East Atlantic, because sea surface temperatures are below normal out there. So I think we're going to see a lot of close-in home development this year in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, where the temperatures are slightly above normal, and we're going to keep an eye on the temperature situation. But there's also the anomaly situation out there, and this is the map of showing the actual pressures out in the Atlantic. Now, last year I showed you this map quite frequently in these updates, and we had a lot of purples. Now here, over here in the upper right hand corner of the screen, this is the Atlantic Basin over here, and I know there's a lot of colors to see, but over here in the upper right hand corner, notice there's yellows, aquas, and just white areas, which are white areas are generally what you would expect for this time of the year as far as pressures are concerned. But the yellow areas indicate above normal pressures all the way down in the Caribbean, and well, at least half of the Caribbean, and then the right off the southeastern United States and the whole Atlantic Basin out here north of the islands are generally above normal pressures. There's a little area in the Caribbean below normal pressures. Now, last year the pressures were way below normal, and that would indicate you're going to get larger systems which take a little more time to spin up and maybe not get as intense. When you have higher pressures in the basin, you have generally smaller, more compact systems, and they generally ramp up rather quickly. So we're going to have to watch for small storms close to the United States this year that ramp up rather quickly in a pressure environment like this. And this is from the NCEP Operational Climatology Database, 5-day average mean sea surface pressures in the Atlantic throughout the entire globe. This is a really interesting map. By the way, all these maps I'm showing you can be found at Jim's Predictions. Click the button next to the tracking chart at Hurricane City, and all these links can be found on there. I think that's about it for the maps for this update. Again, basically things are quiet. Our current feature is Mobile, Alabama. We have a lot of rain moving through. We'll be back with another update if something begins to crank up down in the Caribbean. That's the area we're going to watch for the next week or so and see if something develops down there. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.